Welcome, listeners, to Through the Sightglass, a podcast that dives deep into the fascinating world of craft beer and celebrates the incredible individuals who shape its vibrant landscape. Join us on a journey where we explore the nuances of this amazing industry and the remarkable people who contribute to its richness and diversity. And today we have the pleasure of sitting down with Alan and sharing his time at Lost Nation Brewing. Thank you for making time for us, friend. Complete strangers. We appreciate it.
Love it.
Nice so I know I just introduced you, but do you mind saying your name again and your role here at Lost Nation Brewing?
Yeah, sure. So my name's Alan Van Anda. I do a little bit of everything here at the Lost Nation. But officially I am the owner and founder of the company.
Oh, okay.
Amazing.
Wonderful.
Very nice.
So our first question is a layup. Where'd you grow up? Where do you call hometown?
New Jersey.
New Jersey?
So Central Shore, 1 mile from the ocean.
Oh,
And,
damn.
Nice.
So I started making beer in a brewery down there when I was in high school. And
Oh, okay.
Here I am now.
Not pitching the yeast, right? Because that's illegal.
I mean, we did a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
We've heard the stories through the several podcasts. Of,
Yeah.
people making beer when they were underage and how they did that without it being illegal and stuff. So it's different states.
Yeah, they essentially said the legal loophole was you can make wort, but you could not pitch the yeast to ferment it. So
This was 90.
They didn't care back then.
That's what I'm saying.
They
This
were
is-
I think it was a
following
little
it.
bit.
This is all
before any of that.
allegedly.
Yeah,
It's all
allegedly.
allegedly.
I don't think anybody really cared at that
So
time.
New Jersey, by the ocean, what
Yeah.
was it like growing up?
It's Jersey. There's a lot of people. It was a beautiful part of Jersey, for sure. But a lot of people just outside New York City. So really, if you didn't want to be in banking or work in the city, you were sort of pigeonholed in that realm, and that was
Okay,
never
gotcha.
really for me. So the first time I came up to Vermont, I pretty much knew that was where I wanted to land.
Gotcha.
So I figured out a way to get myself into a college, which I never should have.
Nice. Okay.
And I never left.
Very
So I
nice.
went to Johnson State College, which is right down the road.
Oh, nice.
Yep. And was actually in between fish shows and stopped there, did my interview, and then went up to another one. And then by the time I got back, my mom's like waiting outside for me, and I was like, "Shit, what she finds?" And she's like, "You got into college?" I was like, "Really? Okay."
Oh, that's awesome.
So, but yeah, no, this is Lamoille County is a really beautiful place in
is.
Vermont, and I
is
love it
great.
here, and never wanted to leave, and now have started a business, raised a family, and
Nice.
this is what I call home.
Yeah.
Were you the first to go to college in your family? Did any of your siblings go to college? If you have any,
siblings?
Half brothers and sisters, a few of them
Oh, okay.
did, but I was definitely the one that at high school they were like, yeah, go to the wood shop class.
Yeah.
I see. Yeah, do a
you don't
trade.
need the college prep.
Yeah.
yeah, do a trade.
I'm not using my degree, but I definitely got some skills out of college of working on a timeline,
Right.
creating something from start to finish, and putting the
Mm-hmm.
effort into it. So there were things I got out of it.
I would agree. I'm not
sure.
using mine.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's totally fine.
Yeah,
He
this-
always wants to go and get his. And I'm like, I mean, there's things you can do that you don't have to have it. I think
Right.
there's other things whenever you find your like niche and stuff like that. Like I very much was like taught to like go to college
You
after.
go to high school, you
Yeah,
go to college,
yeah.
yeah,
And then
yeah.
you get a job and like all this stuff. But I think
Yeah.
now that we know that there's more things that you can do and still be who you want to be and how
Right.
you want to be it, like
Yeah, not everybody
You
has to
don't have
follow
to
the
go
same
that
track.
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
And at this point in your life, it's not like you have to go and do like math 101.
Oh,
Right.
yeah.
You can hyper focus into something
Yeah.
and actually have realization out of it.
100%.
totally.
And even
Yeah.
now, there's so much information online. I went to community college and dropped
certifications.
out. But I will say, I think what I enjoyed about college, even though I was terribly bad at it, was the discipline and consistency, like with your schedule and with timelines and deadlines.
Sure.
That was like, I think, the biggest learning curve. I had no problem. I got right to working and paying bills and paying rent on time. But like, college is like, hey, you're going to school, but it's like on your time and it's how much effort you want to put into it. And there's plenty of art projects that I did the night before, did not do any of the week prep and did it the night before, and it killed me. And I was just like, I'm not doing this again. And those hard lessons learned, I was like, okay, yeah, that was my own damn fault.
There you go.
Yeah, for sure. So in like high school, growing up in New York next to the beach, doing woodworking class, like what did that look like for you with friends and interests and hobbies? What were you doing?
I was always into beer. kind
Okay,
of.
how
Okay.
can you let's just go into how did
Yeah,
you
yeah.
do that?
I don't know.
Do you remember your first craft or a beer experience or
Yeah, I used
craft
to
beer
drink
that you
Michelob.
Yeah.
Oh,
I used
okay,
to steal
perfect.
Michelob's out of the fridge from my dad.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And the old school bottle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And
Is the old school that kind of like stub your
no, it
versions?
had the like teardrop. It was like it like
Oh.
curved in and then it was like a pyramid and then curved in and rounded out.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Old school Michelob bottle. Yeah, it was like this was like 80s.
Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha.
And but anybody who remembers Michelob, which I can't believe Anheuser-Busch doesn't make it anymore. Anheuser-Busch, if you're listening, bring back Michelob. You could totally fight Pabst with Michelob.
Yeah, please.
But it was actually like it was your American lager, but it had a malt backbone to it,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a beautiful beer. And so I sort of remember always enjoying a little bit more flavor out of the beer.
Yeah.
And you know, I probably shouldn't have been stealing sips of, but I was.
Thanks,
And
Dad.
so then, you know, fast forward into high school, and kids were drinking underage.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would be the kid that would go into the liquor store and buy like 4 cases of Natural Light, and then like
awesome.
plop a 6-pack or a 12-pack of Sierra Nevada on top.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You know, and then that
Was
would
that
be,
your
like,
little fee?
that was my fee. That was
Yeah.
my cut. I never paid for beer at high school. But I was always, so, you know, the kids at the party, like they're playing beer pong with Natty Light, and I've
You're
got Sierra
drinking your
Nevadas,
Savada.
you know, or I've
Yeah.
got Anchor Steams, or I got something like that. So
Yeah.
I've just always had that affinity for it.
Yeah.
And then prior to working in the brewery, I was working in the liquor store. And then when the brewery opened up, a local brewery, like again, this was 94, 95 when they opened.
Yeah.
So it was ahead of the curve.
Gotcha. This is in New Jersey,
In
right?
Jersey, yeah.
Gotcha.
We were like Coors Light country. So
Okay,
It
gotcha.
was like, people were like, what is this craft
They're
beer
like,
shit?
beer?
You
Yeah.
know, like, what is this stuff?
What is
Yeah.
this?
But it was a beautiful place. It was called Red Bank Lager. We did all traditional German lagers.
Oh, very cool.
And so it was really great, you know, get my feet wet in the.
How did you find them?
They were the local brewery.
Did you just go and you were like, I want to work
I knocked
here?
on the door and I was like, I'll work for free. What do you got?
Yeah.
And
That's
they thought I was
awesome.
nuts. And so they plunked me in a warehouse. My buddy Tom, who owns Berwick Brewing in Pennsylvania, if you guys go through Pennsylvania,
We are.
cannot recommend Berwick enough.
Well,
They make
Okay.
the
Give 'em a
best
call.
beer in the country,
Okay.
hands down.
Awesome. We'll go there.
But so Tom is this savant of beer making, just a brilliant individual, and he kind of looked at me like I was nuts. He was like, all right, he's like, I got this warehouse and I've got this 24 spout bottling line. He's like, so you go into this warehouse, you break the filler apart, you strip all the valves, you take all the paint out, you clean this whole thing, you rebuild it, you do that, and we'll think about giving you a job. So I did that for 2 weeks, and then I got a job.
Hell yeah.
Damn.
I love it.
So that's how I got into the beer.
That's amazing. That's also very daunting to just say, hey, here's a 24
Without
head
a,
bottling line.
YouTube, like what did
There was no YouTube.
there was no
phones,
YouTube.
There was
So
no nothing.
did you
Yeah.
just
Man,
did you have
I
previous
took a piece of paper and I
experience?
sketched out, you know, as I took it apart, I just sketched it out and
Sketched
put
it
it back
out.
together, and then, yeah.
Have you always had an affinity for, I would say, like I'd say engineering and mechanical work?
Sort of, kind of, not really. I
Okay,
don't know.
gotcha.
I mean, like, I like doing a lot of different things.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's one of the things that attracted me to beer is that, you know, one day you're a carpenter, one day you're a scientist, one day you're a mathematician, one day you're a plumber, one day you're an electrician. You
Very
know,
true.
True entrepreneur.
You got to be well, especially in beer too. I mean,
Yeah.
there's just so many of those moving parts, and it touches everything.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a lot easier to fix the switch than call an electrician to do that.
Very
Okay,
true.
You know, so
And learn it and then have
and
it
learn
for other
it. Yeah,
things.
Yeah.
exactly. Because
Keeps
it's
you-
going to break again.
Yes.
Yeah, I will say, I think that's what everybody that works in a brewery, things are running smooth and you're happy for it, but in your mind, you're always like, what's the next thing that's going to
Don't
fail?
say it's
that I'm
running
go-"
smooth.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah, it definitely keeps your brain busy, though. I do. That's an aspect I think is kind of glazed over a lot. Is you get to utilize a lot of different education and troubleshooting and information that isn't strictly just like, okay, you are going to be the canning line operator. It's
Yeah,
like,
right.
no, you deal with science, you deal with carpentry, electrical, you deal with just logistics and warehousing. Like, it's
Sure.
fun to be able to pick up and drop off.
And there's not
Right.
a blueprint. You have to figure it out.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. Yep.
Okay, so
Yep.
you're working at this new brewery in New Jersey.
Yep.
How long were you there? What did it look
I
like?
was there for about a year and a half, and then so that was like my senior year of high school. Maybe my senior, somewhere. So it's fuzzy, but somewhere in that realm. And then I got into college and moved up here to Vermont.
Okay, can I go back to how you came to Vermont for the first time? Was it like a family trip?
A bunch of
or,
friends were going
like,
up to a ski
friends?
house. I
Okay.
didn't ski. I don't ski, so I just came up for the ride.
Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha.
And I kind of knew I wanted to be out of, like, even in Jersey, I would always find myself in the woods out there and in
Yeah.
the country. You know, there were a lot of hiking trails where I
Yeah.
grew up.
Okay.
So, like, that's where I would go. People would go play basketball. I'd go to the woods.
Woods.
Okay.
So
Gotcha.
this was sort of already pulling me. You know, it was just sort of where
Yeah.
my head was.
Yeah, kind of like the landscape and the atmosphere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then right when I got to, when I got here, I was like, holy
Yep.
shit, this is
You're like,
beautiful. You know, like this
done.
is, yeah, done. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Easy
peace.
peasy.
See you later.
Yeah. for
Now, and
sure.
it was a hard one though, because I grew up a mile from the ocean. So trading the ocean, which was my love growing up. You
Yeah.
know, for the mountains, but it was a conscious decision I made, and
And you're not too far away.
Like 3 hours.
That's not
Yeah,
bad.
it's not bad at all.
You didn't grow up in Texas like me, when there was water like nowhere or mountains nowhere.
Right.
Yeah. So you like, yeah, it was conscious, but yeah. So you came here for school. What were you gonna do in school?
Environmental science, and right when I got here, there was already a brewery operating, Rock Art Brewery.
Okay.
And Matt was operating. He had a really cool model. He was operating out of the basement of his house. And he had 7-barrel Grundy tanks in the basement of his house. It was amazing.
Oh.
And Matt's a great guy.
That's
too.
incredible.
If you get a chance to talk to Matt, he's unbelievable.
Okay.
So like OG, like he had this dairy tank with copper pipes underneath it that were basically the burner for his kettle.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and like he made everything, cobbed it all together.
Oh, that's
and this was
awesome.
before, this is before we had, Premier Stainless and all these guys.
Any
that-
fabricators.
JV Northwest and any of these guys. It
Right.
was like calling dairy people, being like,
Oh, yeah,
"Yo,
the
do you
dairy
got another
people,
extra tank that I
yeah,
could cut up?"
for
And,
sure.
you know?
And also, it's not like a 5-barrel, 7-barrel. It'll be like 50 gallon. It's a huge amount. The,
it was
the
a whole
quantity
different world.
yeah.
It was not what it is today. Which
Yeah.
is, there's no GW Kent that in 2 hours I can, or the next day I can have a valve.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah,
You have to
definitely.
use your ingenuity and what you have on you to make it work.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There were a lot of plumbing valves and that, like garden hoses
Yeah.
and that type of shit.
I always
Yeah.
like to think brewers back, especially when I say create Frankenstein their own equipment.
Yeah.
Totally.
Probably a lot of them became amateur welders, and I wonder over the years if they were like looking at old welds, being like, "Oh, I can do so much better now."
Yeah, totally. Oh, yeah. Well, of course.
Yeah,
Course.
the welding, fabricating, all the things.
Yeah,
that's
but so I
amazing.
went to Matt, and he wasn't, he was still in his house, self-contained, so he wasn't looking for any help. And about 6 or 8 months later, 2 buildings down from where we're sitting, a brewery opened called Cross Brewing,
Okay.
and they were a Belgian-style brewery. Kip Ross, great dude, still talk to him.
Nice.
And so at that time, it was Allagash and Portland's with Rob Todd, and it was Cross, who were the only 2 Belgian, 100% Belgian breweries.
Oh, okay.
Style breweries.
Yeah.
So I went to Kip, and he wasn't ready, but then it worked out that I ended up going in with him. So then I was going to school full-time and brewing for him full-time as well. So that worked for about 3 years. We had 2 things against us. One was that there were some quality control issues. It was hard wrangling Belgian yeast at that time.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I remember and this was the time too, I remember having phone calls with the head lab tech over at Sierra Nevada. In 99.
Oh my gosh.
You could pick up the phone and be like, "Hey, I got a question
my
for
God,
you."
I can't imagine.
And
That's
they'd be like,
amazing.
"Yeah, dude, what do you got?"
Yeah, oh my God,
it was
that's
so
amazing.
cool.
So awesome and just so wild to think that's yes, something as quality controlled and immaculate as Sierra Nevada, you could just call that person
Literally
for
pick
information.
up the phone.
So wild.
Yeah.
But there were 1,000 breweries in the country
Yeah.
at
Yeah.
that point in time, so it wasn't a big thing. We had that, and then we had just that giant learning curve. If I remember picking up the phone and people being like, "What is this cloudy beer?"
Yeah.
What is this stuff?
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Learning curve.
so Cross didn't make it, unfortunately. They were ahead of their time.
Yeah.
And by that point, Rock Art had grown out of their basement and had moved into this building that we're sitting in right now.
Oh wow.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, so crazy cycle. So I came over to Rock Art and ended up working for Matt for 5 years here.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So your brewing career, if I'm doing some of the math correctly, started when you were 15 or 16?
Somewhere around there.
That's-
I've only homebrewed 2 batches of beer in my life.
Okay.
That's so
That was
wild.
Okay, I haven't homebrewed any.
Out of necessity. Yeah.
The first time I homebrewed, I almost killed myself. That was fun. Yeah. So
Yeah. No, we have. I mean, that is a quintessential thing. I think there's not many people who are brewing now who haven't homebrewed.
Who got into it from home?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right,
Like
right,
that
totally.
is.
Yeah.
I mean, pretty much everyone that we've talked to, that is a common theme. And if they haven't homebrewed, they've been around homebrew with other friends or been a part of it in some form or fashion. They may have not done it themselves,
Totally.
but been a part of it. But that is such a key thread through all of our conversations is people.
Yeah, I think it sparks the curiosity and passion,
Yeah.
which I was going to ask you, since you started so young, at what point, whether it was in your mind or in your heart that you were like, I want to continue doing this, for, what seems like forever now. So what, do you have a specific moment that clicked, or did it just become an
that's a good
accumulation
question.
of things?
I definitely have the lager moment, which we can get into in a minute, where I figured out lagers. But I don't know. It just always, it just always intrigued me because, as we said earlier, it's something different every day. You know, and I think that kept me on the hook.
Okay.
It was like, cool, what's the challenge today?
Yeah.
Nice.
You know,
What's
not just
weird is
like
that,
push the button.
You didn't have other brewers around you. So you didn't, I mean, I guess you kind of saw that when you were in New Jersey. Like the guys were always probably brewing different things or doing different things. Was that probably helpful? Sorry, I just don't like, yeah.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I get like, even
I
if
guess that was your first
I think
experience.
at that stage in the industry, even if you were brewing the same beer every single day, there was still another challenge because all the efficiencies and automation and things we've learned over the past 30 years had not yet been applied.
That's true.
You
That's
know,
true.
so
Yeah,
it was
especially a lot of the quality control too.
I mean, like we didn't know what dissolved oxygen was back then.
Yeah.
We didn't know what, you know, it was like, cool, use a dairy tank, close the lid.
Yeah.
You know, put some tinfoil over the top.
Yeah.
You know,
this is
like,
how it's supposed
Wash
to
your
taste.
hands.
yeah, wash your hands.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
totally. You know,
That
like,
might have been.
makes sense.
that's the key line in all of it, though. Wash your hands.
Yeah, clean everything. I think that probably was
so
a wild
wild.
realization when think of like the first time somebody like dry hopped the tank, but then thought to like rouse with CO2 or do something totally different than what they had done previously, to then see how that beer tasted from, you know, probably being packaged with a lot of oxygen, and that'll, you know, like
Totally.
green up the hops, maybe get some of that green apple in there, to then something like totally fresh. It's like, wait, did we fuck this up? Or like, it's
Sure.
like, no.
Yeah.
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 Okay, so you're here brewing. Are you still going to school at that time, or are you just here brewing?
During that 5 years, I did graduate from college and then stayed here and continued to brew. So yeah, it was a couple years across, 5 years here at Rock Art. And then I moved on for a minute. In between, I was helping a friend in a soy milk and tofu company. But it's all sanitary process.
Yeah,
You know,
I was gonna say,
so I was
yeah.
just sort of helping him on the side with quality control stuff and like sanitation processes. And then ended up going up there for a couple years, getting out of beer, and I was miserable. Don't ever make tofu. Unless you do it at home and whatever, you know, but on a large scale, it wasn't there. And so through that, I was trying to get back in the beer industry, and I had heard that the Von Trapp family was going to be building their brewery.
Oh, okay.
So I got my
Awesome.
name in the hat for that, and I was hired as their inaugural person to build
We have
and
been
create.
there.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
Okay.
I wrote all the original recipes, built the original brewery, and did all that there.
Wow,
That's
that's
so
incredible.
cool.
The beer, I mean, the beer is great.
Yeah.
And
We had a
we've
great
been to
time.
that facility, and it's gorgeous.
Good people, great staff that work there. Good, yeah. So
Yeah.
I kept close with them, but yeah. You know,
So how long were you there, Von Trapp?
Oh God, I should have written all this
Sorry.
down. No, it's okay. No. It's like racking the brain. I think I went over there in 2009. I think we started in 10. This is rough math. And I was there for about 2 years, I think.
Okay.
And they very quickly realized the potential in beer, which was great for them.
Great time.
And they wanted to, when they started talking about building the big brewery, that's when I was like, well, maybe I should go do my own thing.
Yeah, because
You
that's
know?
maybe not your ideology or what you wanted or had envisioned.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, it was like, if I'm gonna go big for somebody, should I go big for somebody else? Should I go big for myself?
Good answer,
And
yeah.
at that point in time, I had a partner who's no longer involved, but he was working with me at the tofu place, and then we went over to Trap. I brought him over to Trap, and then so it was sort of a collective decision to start this.
Okay, gotcha.
Yep. So then when Trap wanted to go big, we decided to start Lost Nation. So that was 2012. We started 2012. We started raising money, and we officially opened this in 2013.
Wow.
Wow, that's
amazing.
awesome.
Yeah.
So how did y'all, I mean, obviously you knew this location.
Yeah, which is crazy, right? I know.
So
Yeah.
was this up for sale, or like how did that come about?
So Rocker moved and built their own building, and this sat empty for 2 years.
Okay.
So there was nothing in here. Just the cover, like it was the covered loading dock in the back, which in Vermont, a covered loading
Yeah, I'm
dock is
sure.
like gold.
Yeah.
you know?
Oh, yeah.
With the snow and everything.
Right. And so I knew the property manager, and we were looking for buildings in the area to move into, and he just like gave me the keys. He's like, just go there, you know, just hang out,
Please.
just check it out. So we struck a deal, and I mean, I love this building. It's over 100 years old. It's got amazing energy to it. And
That's
it's
awesome.
Just a really cool facility.
So has it always been a brewery, or what was it before?
This was
Rock?
like a stone processing shed way back in like
Okay.
the early 1900s.
Oh, like limestone and basalt, things like that?
Sorta, kinda.
Okay. Gotcha. Maybe
but
not. That's okay.
But they had so this where we're sitting now was the old loading dock. for
Oh,
rails.
okay.
That was the rail trail right there. So that was the railroad bed.
Gotcha.
So the rail
So,
cars would come in
yeah.
here. These big posts right here were like, this was like all exposed, and there were big sliding doors right there to get into the building.
Oh, wow.
So there's rail line underneath us.
Okay.
Like in the basement of this little building, it's like a half basement.
Wow.
You can still see the rail lines in there.
Oh, that's
Oh,
cool.
very cool.
Yeah, it's really cool.
That is
That's very cool.
So Matt and Rock Art redid this as their sort of retail space, but it didn't look anything like this. It was very retail focused.
Mm-hmm.
So when we came in, we turned it into a bar.
Okay.
In this type of
Yeah,
space.
very cool.
Yep.
Very cool.
Yep.
Wow, that's so cool.
Yeah, we love hearing.
We liked hearing the stories.
The story
There's
about
some
the
really cool
building too,
stories.
along with the business. It
Yeah,
really
I got
ties
some
everything
pictures when we
together.
wrap up. I got some pictures of trains.
Yeah,
parked
we'd
on
love
the
to
show.
see it.
Oh, yeah.
I'd love to see that. Yeah.
So I just want to jump back quickly. So Von Trapp, obviously, is, I would say, they're a German-focused brewery. And so when they brought you on as their inaugural brewer, is that what you came to them, kind of like with your pitch, like, hey, you guys are a German family. I want it to be all German-inspired. How did that come about basically creating a German lager brewery?
So Johannes, who's the matriarch of the family at this point in time, he wanted Austrian. He wanted to do Austrian-style beers.
My
And he
apologies,
wanted-
Austrian.
Same region.
Yeah.
And he wanted a Helles and he wanted a Vienna.
Okay.
And the Vienna was very important to him. So I brought them all these beers and was like, just give me direction. Where do we want to go? And at that point in time, we still could get like Scrimshaw pills from North Coast. We could still get
right.
so like,
Lovely.
Scrimshaw.
Yeah.
Lovely.
And so I just sat down with Euro beers and American beers and said, just give me what you like out of each of these, and we'll try to write some recipes.
Right.
And so started working on that, and we had a permit hiccup, which basically held us up for about 4 months within the state of Vermont. And as we navigated through that, the brewery was pretty much ready to go. Mm-hmm. So I was like, look, I'm going to be making you these beers. I've never been to Germany. I should probably go to Germany.
Oh, darn.
So we worked out a deal where I think they bought my plane ticket, but I paid my whole way.
Okay.
And then, again, back to the crazy cosmos of the world, my friend Tom from Red Bank in Berwick was going to be in Germany at the same time.
Yeah.
So I met him over there.
Yeah.
So it was a great trip. I went to England for the hop harvest. Then I went to Belgium for a week. And I was still like very much into like Belgian style beers at that point in time, like Duvel and Schoof and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I went to Germany for a week and met Tom. And back to that lager epiphany moment.
Yeah.
So we were sitting in the Augustiner brewery, and I was like, I just wish they had like a Duvel,
Yeah.
like and I'm too deep on Augustiner Helles. And it was just this like one sip, and it was like the goosebumps and the, like bubbles in your head. And I was like, oh my God, this is the greatest thing on the planet.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
And my
That's
like
wild.
love and affinity for lager beer and German style beers just kicked in at that. It was crazy.
just
It was
blossomed
one of the-
from there.
Literally a sip, and I was like, oh, I get it. you
Yeah.
know? Whoa, there's so much flavor and complexity, but it's so simple, but it's
That's amazing.
Yeah, so Augustiner, thank you, Augustiner, for
Thank
that.
you.
So that kind of led to the next chapter of love of German lagers and all that type of stuff.
Yeah. So did that, I'm assuming, help you like going back?
That helped me when I came back, because I also then had a greater understanding of the culture around beer that exists. American beer culture, we were gaining, and we'll get into a little taboo here, but like we were gaining pre-IPA craze, and I will argue till I'm blue in the face that IPAs were the worst thing that ever happened to the beer industry.
Oh, okay.
Like, I think that we absolutely shot ourselves in the foot. We made a great product, and it should be there. It has its place in the beer industry. But the overcorrection that we did with it, the jump in, every wholesaler, you just need an IPA. 18 draft lines, and 16 of them are IPAs.
Yeah.
We're not doing ourselves any favor.
Yeah.
There are all these beers out there, and not everybody likes IPAs.
Yeah.
So, we really... It was. I think the beer culture, American beer culture, took a big step backwards when we doubled down on IPAs.
Yeah.
And
Instead of being like balanced, do you think? Like if it was more balanced?
I think it's all of it. I think it just came into this like IPAs, especially the ones that are popular, they're one dimensional.
Yeah.
Put a blindfold on and drink a juicy IPA from Brewery XYZ.
Yeah.
What the hell is the difference? There's no bitter in it. It's all just this haze bomb. Like it's just a juice bomb.
Yeah.
If I want to drink pineapple juice, I'll drink some pineapple juice.
Yeah.
If I
100%.
want mango juice, I'll drink mango juice.
Yeah.
I want beer.
Yeah.
And I want to be able to taste water, yeast, hops, malt.
Yeah.
Those are the things you want to taste.
Yeah, it was interesting. I mean, being born and bred in such a hop-heavy place, but a lot of the breweries I worked at, I mean, Freem is a huge lager-focused brewery, and they produce fantastic beer. Their Pilsner is still like, I could drink that till the day I die and never get sick of it. But once I started going from production into brewing, and started learning that a lot of IPAs had the same 3 hops that went into them.
Totally. Mosaic and Citra.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's where it really was. And then I was like, well, then what's the difference? And that's where I really started understanding like there are bigger nuances in malt, yeast, and kind of like minerality and water and how that affects your beer.
Yeah.
But none of those could be expressed very well when it was just like, oh yeah, and then our dry hopping rates, and we're just covering it with hops. Like
exactly.
And it did get to a point where I was just like, every IPA really did taste the same. And I was just like, I don't know if I'm going smell deaf to it or whatnot. I was like, but I need like a palate reset. And so that's where it was like all lagers, all saisons, table beers, and things like that. And then coming back to it, it still is. I would agree with you partially in saying that I think people think that, and people will argue this, and I'm totally fine to listen to it as well, but they're like, oh no, but like you can do certain little tweaks and changes with hops that like really make it distinct from one to another. And I said, yeah, I totally agree with that.
It's called a bittering hop.
Yeah.
It's not just put everything in the whirlpool and be done.
Yeah.
You know?
I definitely think that. I mean, like we love a good IPA.
I do too. Yeah.
I don't always love the hazy, but I do enjoy a good hazy. But for me, I am very much lager focused, and so whenever we've been on the West Coast for so long, like so many hops all the time. Like all of my lagers have hops in them, like more than normal amount of hops, of course.
Yeah.
Is like I do appreciate a really good crisp lager though. So I think there is a place for the IPAs. There's a place for the hazies.
Right. Oh, absolutely. There's a place for them.
We probably, I guess, since we were on the West Coast, maybe we didn't see it as much as you did out here on the East Coast with like the hop craze with IPAs and stuff like that. But I mean, yeah, we do appreciate when there's a balance on the.
Well, I think it removed, like, to that point, like, it removed the, like, there's so many levels to this conversation.
Yeah.
Not to get pigeonholed in the IPA conversation, but it made it, you know, the bar managers, purchasers, owners, whatever it is, they have a role in all of this.
Yeah.
The wholesalers have a role in all of this. It's not just like make the beer and float it out.
No.
You know, and then so what I said earlier about like, 18 draft lines and 16 of them are being IPAs, that's not doing anybody any service. Like, cool, have some great IPAs, 100%, not knocking that. Yeah. But there are people that don't like hoppy beers.
Yeah.
You know, it's not the only option. And so we have an entire segment of folks. One, the younger drinkers that are turning 21, 22, 23, 24 that are trying to get into craft beer.
Yeah.
Or because craft beer has gotten so big, an older segment of folks that are like, what's this craft beer like?
Yeah.
And they go to a bar and they have this, hop bomb juicy IPA and they're like, man, this tastes terrible. Miller Lite, please.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And it's just it's made it such a monotone one stream thing that I can't wait for the correction to come back, and I think we're starting to see it.
It is definitely coming back.
Yeah.
The natural selection is taking effect.
Yeah.
We hear it a lot.
And I will say, I think that what goes along, and this is something I'm more than happy, because I love talking about this. We'll talk about it after the podcast. I think distribution was like a big, the 3-tier system. Totally. I think that was a big influence on how beer is sold, but also like made, and it, like you said, like it was incentivizing more. So like you need an IPA, like you need your core beers, you need an amber, you need an IPA, and then you need, they wouldn't even say Pilsner, it was just like some American lager. And then a hef, like an American hef. They're like, that's what you need for your core beers.
Put an orange in it.
Exactly. And that like drove it drove a lot of people to do that, because they're like, this is the guideline, this is the system it follows. And I think it took the Ballast Point sale and all the AB InBev merger, but like it took a long time and a lot of data for people to realize that distributors can be positive and beneficial to their business, but they're a business in and of itself, and it doesn't necessarily mean that they think in the best terms for your business or your vision or what you want.
Yes.
So
that's been a huge conversation that we've had with a lot of breweries across like our U.S. trek. We've started on the West Coast,
because that's also what bankrupts a ton of breweries is signing with a distributor, and then when when the growth or the trend isn't where it is, there's all plummets, and it's like these are people's dreams and lives. They're now just like, in the dirt.
And we're seeing a lot of mergers within the distribution companies. So
Right.
like right now we've only got 4 or 5 in Vermont.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
I mean, and the big boy holds a lot of brands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like when they attained more brands and another distributor went out last year, it was like they probably have 20, 25 Vermont IPAs.
Yep.
So the bartender, the bar buyer goes, "Hey, what do you have for Vermont IPAs? Where do they even begin?"
Yeah,
how do
exactly.
And like competition within wholesale is healthy in that regard. Where
Right.
it's like, and especially with all the like backdoor stuff that happens of
Uh-huh.
like, I'm on incentive this month. I'm on post off this month. I'm on whatever it is. Wholesale, reps. Whatever rep hits this mark for this brand gets a Red Sox tickets
Right.
or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It is crazy.
So,
Yeah.
I want to jump back
yeah.
to you're at Von Trapp.
Mhm.
You and your business partner, say his name again,
Jamie.
Jamie.
Yep.
Y'all are like, okay, we got to do something for ourselves.
Yep.
What does that conversation look like, and how do y'all land on the name Lost Nation?
So Lost Nation came from me. That's I don't know how long of a story, but how long do I want to go?
It's all up
However
to
long
you.
you want.
Yeah.
All right, so I guess it's pretty wild the connection. So growing up in Jersey, my mom was a school teacher. She used to work at this school, and so fast forward now, 25 years, 30 years. I bought a house up on the end of this dirt road in the middle of nowhere, and little tiny place. And my mom came up to check it out, and we were talking to the folks that we bought it from. And they were like, "Oh, there's this sweet old lady down the road, a school teacher. Her name is Mary Jane Dexter." And my mom turns white in the face. So turns out Mary Jane Dexter used to be the wife of the headmaster of the school that my mom taught at.
Oh, wow.
She held me when I was a baby.
Oh, wow.
So we're talking 2 miles off
that's
a dirt
crazy.
road in the middle of northern Vermont, 7
Yeah.
hours away from where I grew up, right?
Yeah.
So Mary Jane was a huge part of my life as an adult then. We used to spend time with her. She actually officiated my wedding. She married us.
Oh,
gosh.
nice.
And, so she had this barn on her property, and I was looking. She had a bunch of vehicles, and I have a Volkswagen bus, so I was looking for a place to store my bus for the winter. And I had asked her, "Hey, can I store the bus in the barn for the winter?" And she's like, "Oh, you mean the old schoolhouse?" I was like, "That was a schoolhouse?
Oh my gosh.
How cool!" Like, and she's
Yeah.
like, "Yeah, the Lost Nation Schoolhouse." And I was like,
What?
"That name's cool."
Yeah, that's awesome.
What's up with that?
Yeah.
So she kind of started filling me in, that there was like, that's that area up in Wolcott used to be called the Lost Nation. And as I dug into it a little bit more, it's basically like folklore for this area of a lot of rural areas where when the towns were defined, it wasn't clear where the town boundaries were. So there's always sort of this fluff in between the two towns and the real rural communities,
Okay.
and that would be called the Lost Nation.
Okay.
And it's-
Interesting.
Yeah, so it's right on the border of Wolcott and Craftsbury,
Okay.
and it's just sort of this no man's land
man's
up there.
land.
And so it was really cool. So I grabbed that
Yeah.
and then called this Lost Nation.
I love it, and
That's
it makes sense
awesome.
with the is
With
that the barn?
Yeah.
totally.
Is the barn?
It's
still
not the
standing?
actual barn, but it was the
Okay.
inspiration for the logo.
Oh,
Okay.
wonderful.
Is there a barn?
God, that's so
barn
cool.
still standing over there?
It is still
We're a
standing.
sucker for a good barn.
Okay, yeah. It's not huge. It's like it's just an old schoolhouse.
Oh,
but it's really
My
cool.
mom was a teacher. His nan was a teacher. His aunt's a teacher.
Yeah.
There's
Cool.
teachers in the family.
Well,
and
I'll tell you where it is off the air.
Yeah, no, perfect. Is Mary Jane Dexter still around? Does she
She's
come
passed
visit?
away since.
Oh,
So
okay.
rest her soul.
Condolences. So
Yeah.
sorry about
Yeah.
that.
Yep.
Well, I'm glad that
So
she was able to be a
wild.
part of your life and be an inspiration.
Yeah.
That's
Crazy.
awesome.
I mean, like, 7 hours away in the
7
middle of a dirt
hours.
road in the
No.
middle of nowhere.
And
She
you'd
held
already
you as a
said like
baby, that's
the work of the cosmos and universe. It
Yeah,
is
man.
really interesting to see how sometimes the smallest, you think like most like tiny moments, all of a sudden come around to become something big, and you're like, what is the chance of that?
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah, I love it so much. I mean, that's a huge part of why we love doing the podcast is sharing those stories and
You hear
like,
some cool stuff. Yeah,
like letting people know like how did this come about? Like why are you making beer? How were you inspired to make beer? Like I'm
Yeah.
sure the people who probably sit at your bar all the time may not always know that that was from a schoolhouse.
Right,
That like
right.
your mom knew the teacher and she officiated your wedding. Like that's so wild.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I love it so much.
We get stoked on it. If you can't tell, this fills our cup.
Awesome. That's
Yeah.
great. Well, yeah,
Yeah.
It's a crazy story.
Yes,
That's
we love
wonderful.
we love telling the stories for sure. So tell us a little bit. So whenever y'all got started, what was the reception like in the area? Because you had at that time a couple breweries in the area. How many breweries?
Rock Art was here. Traps was here. Alchemist was still at the pub.
And you said Cross had closed.
Cross is closed.
Okay, gotcha.
Sean was doing Hill. That was going.
Okay.
Around the same time, I think he started maybe a year before we did or so. So he was still
So this is
in
like
the
2012,
garage.
2013 era?
2012, 2013.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. And yeah, that was about it in the area. I think, you had some Burlington had its scene and
Yeah.
all those things.
Yeah.
But it was still, I think there was probably like 2,500, maybe 3,000 breweries at that time in the country.
Gotcha.
So, now we're at like
Yeah.
11 or 12,000.
Yeah, it's now
Kinda
tripled,
wild.
quadrupled.
kind of wild.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what was the reception like?
It was great. It was
Yeah.
great. I mean, we have a really strong local community
Yeah,
here.
I'm sure.
Okay, awesome. I was about to ask, I didn't know if they were like wary.
No, they're
okay,
awesome.
gotcha.
I mean, it's and we, the whole concept here was to create something that I used to work at this pub in Stowe, and Stowe is, it can be a little more shishi than we are, for lack of better words.
Yeah.
And I remember going in after working at Traps to the pub that I, worked at for all these years,
Yeah.
on the side doing all their beer program, coming in like dirty Carhartts.
Yeah.
And you get people being like, "And who are you?"
Yeah. You're like,
And
I'm
so
gonna
it was
make
a
the beer
really,
you're
so it was
drinking.
like right.
Yeah.
So it was like a really big goal to create something that there was none of that BS. You
Yeah.
know, it was just like, this is for everybody.
Yes.
And I don't care if you're walking in, in $1,000 Italian loafers, and
Yeah.
then you're sitting next to a guy who just cut wood all day.
Yeah.
So that was a really important thing. And it's always also been family focused. I have kids. I don't believe in the whole like, this is a bar, you can't sit here kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want to have a root beer, have a root beer.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not going to buy the kid a shot.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? But like, there's
Here's a Nunderberg.
yeah, right. But we don't need these like barriers.
Yeah.
It's responsible alcohol consumption, and why
Yeah.
hide it?
Right.
Like just have it be part of the conversation, part of the fabric.
Yeah. For sure.
And so I remember the first weekend we opened this room here that we're sitting in was Father's Day weekend of 2013. And I was behind the bar, and there was a dad and his like 12 or 13-year-old son sitting next to him. And dad had a beer, and the kid had a root beer, and I was like, "Damn, we did it!
Yeah.
That's
You're
really
that was like
cool.
success.
We did it! Yeah,
Yeah.
like if it ends now, we did it. So it's always kind of been that. So the community is really, and we've tried to be a community space for meetings and gatherings, and with the restaurant component. I don't care if you come in and have a beer or not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter to me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's more so of just being this, and that's the old like pub style.
Right.
Yeah, you're
You
providing
know?
space and atmosphere.
Right.
Yeah.
And we're fortunate enough. I read these articles about out in the Midwest where it's like the mid-20s crowd are too rowdy and they've got to limit age and all. There's crazy things going on.
Yeah.
Vermont's very much a community space. There's only 600,000 of us, so it's little room to be
Yeah.
a jerk. 'Cause
Yeah,
you know 20 other people who know
Right,
you.
right.
Like I know your dad. What are you doing? You know?
Yeah.
Well, and it is like we think of like we love a good pub. And the reason I think we love the pub is because we like the cold and we like the thought of like it being cold outside and everyone coming into the pub
Yeah.
and having a beer and it being warm in the pub because everyone's in there.
Right.
And so I think just of that, like we love the community, we love
Mm-hmm.
the craft beer community, and so it's like having a community around the craft beer industry. There's a craft beer industry community. And then there's the community around that.
Yep.
That's what we really appreciate and what we really
Yeah.
love. And like we love to see is like we love going into the cool spots and like the people who love to go there on their day off or the regulars who go and different things
Totally.
like that. And
Yeah.
Or for a special event. Or we come here every year for anniversary.
Yeah.
We come here every year for,
yes. Yeah, the
And
community
even
around
so,
it.
I mean, and you will always hear stories at a bar stool.
Yeah.
But it's also
Oh, yeah.
cool to, if you're not from, like we're not from here, but most of the time we'll sit down with like a book, or we'll bring our crib board and cards, but we'll just sit and watch. And it's
Sure.
like just watch kind of like not like local wildlife, but you just get to see how people naturally interact. And like, I don't know, for me, it's like, that's cool. I feel like I get a glimpse of like something like intimate and special.
Right.
Because when I'm in my hometown, I don't look at it that way, but I bet there are people that's just like, oh, okay, like, oh, this is so cool. Like, this is how
Yeah.
they do things, you know?
Or
yeah.
if you're in town and you want to find where the swimming hole is. Or you
Yeah.
want to find out where a good hiking trail or biking trail or
Always.
something. You know?
Best food
Like,
recommendations come from locals.
Always.
Yeah.
honestly.
So like if you're doing it right at that bar setting or at that community gathering place. You get all that. Hey, I need a cord of firewood. Anybody know where there's a cord of firewood around?
Yeah.
Yeah.
know,
Oh,
like-
absolutely.
But, yeah.
For sure. We always, I think that was one thing when we first started, because we live in our van. Like, when we first started going places, we would stop at the bar and be like, we'd have a couple, like a beer or two, play some crib, have some conversation, and be like, and then we did that at Von Tramp. We were like, hey, do you know of a place when we were here in 2021? We were like, do y'all know of a place we could park and not like, make anyone mad
Yeah.
or like, we don't want to disturb anyone.
Yeah.
We just need a place to park for the night to sleep, and then we're going to go about our day or whatever. And like, that's a great place to like learn a couple of those things and like enjoy the community and see things that we normally wouldn't see if we
Right.
were to pull up and be like, what do we need to see in this
Totally.
Vermont area? You
Yeah.
know?
Totally.
So anyways, I'm just noticing your bar.
Yeah.
I'm assuming the wood is from something special. Is there some? I'm sorry. I just like my attention.
So,
like
you're
I
all
saw
good.
that.
Totally. So there's another crazy story, but my other partner Matt is he wasn't day to day, but he does a lot for the company, and he owns a place up in Mud City, and there was an old barn up there that he had, and so this is all barn board off his old barn.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
And then this maple slab here that makes up the top bar. When we were starting the brewery, I went to the local, talking about where do you go to
Where do you
get
get
Yeah.
info, right? I went to the local hardware store. I was poking around. I was like, we're looking for a bar top. Does anybody know anybody who's got? Well, sure
Something
enough, it
cool,
was like, oh, you should talk to so and so who talks to so and so.
Yeah.
And we got this. It was sitting in a guy's barn, all like stickered up for like 8 years, and he's like, I've been saving this wood for a bar.
Okay. That's,
And we're
okay.
like, dude, okay, So
He had like a field of dreams moment, like build it and one day they will come.
Yep. So
That's
so we got this wood.
wild.
So that's the slab. Our good friend Richard is a woodworker. He put it all together.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yep.
That's so cool.
Yeah, we'll take photos and we'll get his info. I don't know if he has Instagram, but we'll at least
Yeah,
just tag him and be like the
yeah.
bar.
Definitely doesn't have Instagram.
Okay.
Yeah, I was
know,
about to say, babe. I
that's-
don't think so.
Hey, you know what? It's
You know
okay.
these days.
At least give him credit.
Okay, tell us a little bit about the spaces then. Like, tell us about Lost Nation, what you are doing nowadays, what y'all like to, like, from your opening to now, like, what's going on?
Oh wow, that's a long one. So because we're 11 years now. So you got growth for the first bunch of years, and then we slowed down a little bit. Full disclosure, we had some quality control issues around 2018 that really started rearing their head. Around 2019, the conversation started saying like we got some problems.
Yeah.
Then the pandemic hit, and so pandemic was head down. It's figured like just grant here, grant there, keep going, keep going.
Yeah.
And then coming out of the pandemic was sort of that like we're not going to give up, not going to give up. And then to not delve into, but partnership restructure.
Okay.
So my partner's out. Matt, who gave us the barn board, is still here. And it was basically almost go out of business. And so November of 22 probably should have closed the doors, like straight up.
What kept you going?
Insanity.
Oh, okay.
Passion, babe.
Passion.
Yeah.
No,
Passion.
That's a great fuel.
It's a great question. It's a great question. What kept me going is there was a lot of debt. My house and still my former partner's house is on the line.
Okay.
Which is starting to get cleaned up now. I have children. I'm not going to, I'm going to fight like hell to keep everything. I
Yeah.
don't want to claim bankruptcy.
Yeah.
And then, so that was like, the not the selfish part, but the selfish, but personal part, you
Yeah.
know? And then, so in 2022, November 2022, we stopped brewing beer. And I had one cook working for us who was like, I want to open up my own restaurant. So I'll just do the cooking here so I can get some, get this all figured out for myself, almost as like an internship. I'll buy all the food, I'll pay all my labor. You give me the space and you run the bar.
Okay.
So it was two of us for about till like January or February.
Okay.
And then my chef, who still is here now, is an absolute rock, Kyle. He came to me and he's like, look, I'm tired of sitting on unemployment. I don't want to work anywhere else. Like, we can do this. We can get our restaurant going again. So myself and Kyle started slowly rebuilding the restaurant component. Mike, who did his own thing here, was here 2 days a week, and he did Wednesday, Thursday, and I think we did Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Okay, gotcha.
And we just slowly started rebuilding the restaurant front-facing component. Our bank and our landlord have been insanely supportive of us.
That's
and
awesome.
They've allowed us to sort of keep working towards this goal of rebuilding. So that gets us to summer of 23. So basically, I operated as just a beer bar, like
Okay.
a bar, restaurant bar.
Yeah.
I brought in other people's beer, and that was fun. That was kind of fun too,
Yeah.
because it was like, oh, you've never had Rothaus Pilsner? Well,
Yeah.
here you go.
Nice.
You've never had West Mall Double? Well, here it is on tap.
Yeah, it's like shifting gears. You get to do,
Yeah.
besides doing the brewing operations manager, directing everything, now you get to be out here in education and showcasing all these fun things.
And it was a great sort of market experiment to be like, what sells really well?
Oh, very true.
Because I got to see, and the most common thing, like even with my whole like sort of punk fight back against the IPA thing, but I think we had 3 IPAs on tap out of 17 lines.
Okay.
And then the
that's
rest
good.
were other things,
Yeah.
stouts and porters and browns and whatever.
Yeah, I ran the whole spectrum.
Ran the whole spectrum. And it was fun to be able to sort of reconnect with some of the importers and bring in these beers that had sort of been forgotten in Vermont.
Right.
They didn't even know, the distributor didn't even know they had Saison Dupont.
Yeah.
Until you asked for
You're
it.
like, do you have this? Yeah.
So we like had, we had Dupont on tap, as I said, West Mall.
Please, Terrace Boba.
Actually, I've got Zen beer on tap right now.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah.
Lovely.
And so we can have one of those for lunch.
Yes. Sounds great.
Yeah. So it was a really good, and what kept coming back from the customers were like, thank you so much for not just having IPAs on tap. And it helped solidify sort of the path forward of like what beers and style I want to create and offer. So we made it through that summer. Somehow we made it through last winter. And now we're back here, and I started brewing. I did a batch of beer in May, was the first batch.
Okay, since the hiatus.
Since the hiatus.
Okay.
So it had been almost a year and a half. And then since then, I've done multiple other batches.
Nice.
So Mosaic's back. Rustic is one of our fan favorite custom local dry hopped amber.
Yeah, it is. It's been really fun. And I say funny because Washington State Mac and Jack's Amber is like one of the biggest ambers that you can have out there. And it's been there since probably the 90s.
Yep.
But now ambers are coming back. Ambers and rye ale, rye IPA. That's like a huge trend in the Northwest. So that's like super fun to see.
I love ambers, but the last few that I've had, I have not liked. And so like, it's been hard to like get back into it. So it's like, anytime I see one, I'm like, I just want to try and see, do you have a good one? Who has a good one? Like, so
needless to say, we're very excited to try your.
We got
Awesome.
for sure.
So you started from the hiatus brewing batches back in May.
In May, I just did one batch of Mosaic and got it through. And there was, there was a lot of things that were left in the brewery that needed to be fixed.
Okay.
So it's been a methodical sort of step-by-step process of like, I started to do a batch of beer and the grain mill was broken. I started to do a batch of beer and this was broken, So like, it's been a touch everything, fix everything step by step.
Gotcha.
And now we're feeling really good about where everything is.
Nice.
And then so wrapping back to the Kolsch, what we said earlier. So the Kolsch is this like crazy serendipitous thing where I knew I needed another batch of beer to get through. And so I called a buddy at a local brewery and I was like, do you have any ale yeast kicking around?
Yeah.
And he's like, I got some Kolsch yeast. And I was like, well, shit, I don't know what I want to do for a Kolsch. But I was like, cool, I'll take it. So I went over and I grabbed a brink of Kolsch and brought it back. And then started looking around the brewery. And I had, random Pilsner malt. And I had this and that. So it was literally one of those things where like that day I was like, all right, grain build. Just wrote it on the fly.
That's awesome.
And then it was like, 3 bags of Vienna, 4 bags of Vienna. I don't know. I had another bag, and I wrote it all down, thankfully. That's know how to do that.
There you go.
And then we had these random hops in the back. Opened up a bag, was like, nope. Opened up a bag, and I was like, damn, never heard of these before. Yeah, that'll work.
Yeah, nice. Good.
And so it worked out really good. We're drinking it now.
It tastes
great.
Yeah.
The Kolsch is very good.
So we called it Rise Up, and the Phoenix from the Ashes. It's sort of like Phoenix Rise Up from the Ashes kind of thing.
Yeah, that's very storytelling.
Yeah. And then so within all this, not to, if you have any more, but
no, continue.
we also, when we were rebuilding the restaurant, I had hired a few bartenders back just to help me because I was the only person. And one of them was this fellow named Phil, who's a musician as well. So we started doing music in this room.
Oh, sweet.
Just as like an acoustic kind of thing. And I'll show you guys later. But so this building, we're in an 800 square foot spot. There's a 5,000 square foot production facility. And then there's a 5,000 square foot warehouse on the other end.
Wow.
Damn, it's almost 20,000 square.
10,000.
Yeah, sorry.
Yep, 10,000 square feet, 10,800. And so that warehouse was just like stuff everywhere.
Yeah.
It was just totally just mismanagement of space and all of it. So one night after doing music, I was like, hey, Phil, you got to check this out. And I brought him out there. I was like, what do you think about doing music out here?
Yeah.
And we were just like, okay, all right, you know. So
Start planning.
Yeah, so a couple weeks go by, and we call a friend who's another local musician who has a sound system. We're like, just bring down a couple speakers and a board quick, and let's just plug in and see what happens. And so we played for the inaugural, like, is this going to work or not? We put Pink Floyd Animals on as loud as we could.
Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
And it just seemed right.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And it sounded good in there.
Yeah.
Because it was going to go one way or the other. It was like, this is
Yeah.
going to work and sound boxy and boomy, or it's actually going to work.
Yeah.
So now we've got, through the past year and a half, we've transitioned that. We're just coming off 74 weeks straight of music out there.
Wow.
Damn, congratulations.
Yep.
That's
And,
fucking awesome.
It's been wild every Friday night. So
Yeah.
18 to 20-hour days every Friday for the last 74 weeks, but that's okay. Because I'll work here from 8 until whatever, and then I bartend back there until
there.
1 in the morning, 2 in the morning. So
Jeez.
it's been fun. I've seen 74 nights of music.
Yeah.
Very
That's
true.
Some really good music.
You always find the silver lining.
Yeah, you got it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But now we're going to start doing like monthly shows, and it opens up the room for other events.
Right.
And
Awesome.
we're doing like an indoor farmers market in there. We're doing
Oh,
Definitely.
yeah,
should
like
do
marketplaces. Very cool.
We got wrestling coming up.
Oh my
next
gosh.
week. Yeah.
Thank
That's
you.
amazing.
It's gonna be
You-
awesome.
If you ever make it to Vancouver, Washington, Recluse Beer Works
you need
does
to talk to
luchador.
them.
Okay.
They do.
Yeah, they
Well,
do.
they talked about doing luchador. They were trying to find luchador wrestlers. They had done like a petting zoo for llamas.
Whoa.
And their
Yeah,
next thing,
they're fun people.
Yeah.
which y'all have a lot of llamas.
I think they were
We do
actually.
have llamas.
I think they're
Yeah.
specifically they were looking for midget luchadors.
I know they were.
And there's a big wrestling scene in Tacoma, Washington, where
Yeah.
I worked for a long time. That's
Yeah.
where we met. But yeah,
Okay.
But yeah, event space.
Event space.
I'll talk to you about event space.
Cool.
Yeah, we can talk after.
Great. Well, I'll show you when we're all
Yes,
done. But
please
do.
so that has been. But I guess point being is that it's taken this sort of like one path and broken it out to multiple paths as part of this rebirth.
yeah,
And that's been really energizing and exciting.
Yeah, and I think
Yeah.
that like as a small business owner, you have to like pivot.
Hell yeah.
I mean, like we don't own anything physically, but like I think talking to so many different people, like a lot of the people who are doing things like this, like they talk about having to have a couple of avenues
Yeah.
to really pivot to depending on the season or like what's working for their market or different things. And so it's like not just pigeonholing yourself into like one niche area,
Yep.
but like giving yourself just like the balance of
Yeah.
the top line.
Totally.
Like you can't just have all IPAs.
Diverse revenue stream.
Yes,
Yeah.
for sure.
You know, it's like you have to have a diverse product line and a diverse revenue stream.
Yeah.
absolutely.
Because seasons change, and out here, like, I feel like it does change for y'all so quickly. Like,
Sure.
I'm sure there's very, like, specific times that are, like, really good for y'all and then really not good for y'all, probably because of the weather. So I think that's really awesome of you to, like, be able to pivot as a business owner and, like, want to keep it going and, like, be here for the community and be able to bring people in and whatnot. So that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Well, and that's exactly because that was the third component of why I kept going.
Yeah.
Was that we are this community thing. Like we're seeing a lot of growth in this town right now,
Nice.
Mm. Sure.
which is good and bad.
Yes.
Because a lot of it is overflow from like Burlington that's
Yeah.
coming out because apartments are cheaper out here.
Yeah, very true.
So we see ourselves here internally as sort of this like thing that's fighting to keep this not a bedroom community,
Yeah.
but like a cool community that's
Yeah.
got like arts and vibrancy and
Yes.
life to it.
People wanna
Yeah,
be
well, and
around.
like connection.
And
you
connection.
know? Yeah.
I mean, so in the past like 8 months with some of the new apartments that went in, the one business that's the most busy is the coffee shop because people are buying all their stuff out in Burlington after work. You know, their groceries, they're having food out there, and then they
Yeah.
come here, they sleep, then they buy coffee and they go back to Burlington.
Yeah.
So we're trying to make that not be the case, and be like,
That
yo, we're
is
here,
so
man.
100%.
Yeah.
And also, it's
Right.
like if you reside in this space, it's also beneficial to get to
Yeah.
know it and invest in it.
Right.
And that's like been a huge. I mean, corner stores and bars were started because of those reasons.
That's
I mean,
Yeah.
throughout. I mean, God, I've talked about this about how many podcasts,
I
but yeah, it's
know.
like literally back in the day, pubs were your source of information,
Yeah.
a community gathering
That's
space,
right.
but also provided heat because a lot of homes didn't have fireplaces, or if you couldn't afford coal or wood or whatnot, you'd go to a pub.
Yep.
And yeah,
Yep. And in Vermont, that's where we overthrew the government.
yeah.
You know what I mean? It was like
Very
going-
true.
Ethan Allen going back.
Very
I mean, it's
true.
so
I
much,
love it.
Yeah. Oh my
The
gosh.
resilience is
Yeah,
here.
totally,
Yes,
yeah.
totally. I love it so much that like you're really seeing it not just as like you as a business owner, but like you as a community, and like how can you help the community stay here?
Right.
Like that's pretty huge. I love that.
Yep. That's
Yeah.
what keeps me going.
Yeah, that's so
Yeah,
great.
it's super healthy. Again, we were literally gushing about this because we were talking when we were talking about our business. We're like, we want the impact to be bigger than just like us owning a successful
Yeah.
business. It's like we
Yeah.
want to, whether it's
Help
inspire, but
people.
like, or if people show a passion for it. I mean, I always thought I wanted to run a brewery. Now, after spending 12 years doing a lot of it, I'm like, it'd be cool to have a business that deals with the brewery aspect, but I want to make sure that people like yourself keep that passion and keep that fire because like that's super valuable.
Totally.
And it's not just this industry, but like that burnout is across the globe. And I'm like, it stinks to think how many dreams have been snuffed because it's like I'm not making any money, or the world is in such a state that like I can't support just doing this, and so I have to just do something that fits. And it's
Yeah.
like I've never lived my life like that, and I don't ever want to. And so this is like one of those things again where I'm like, this is something that is. It's far more valuable than the dollar amount that is probably equated to it. Like people like this are what inspire for generations and
Yeah.
generations.
Yeah.
Like we
Right.
need these places.
Well, and I mean exactly that because like for obviously when you're here, people will be like, "Hey, should I start a?" It's a crazy question, right? Like,
Yeah.
"Oh, should I start a brewery?" And you're like, "I can't answer that for you."
Yeah.
But then I
You
got
thought
to-
life was hard at first.
right. Well, but then it gets to the point where it's like, no, actually, because like just as an industry, it's too saturated.
Yeah.
Do everybody a favor and find a way though, just like you're saying,
Yeah.
to be a part of the industry and support the industry
Yeah.
without being something that's dragging it down.
Yeah.
Because another brewery right now, until we clean things up a little bit, is not.
I like the way you said that.
It doesn't
Clean
help,
things up.
you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. And there is a bunch of or I would say, is Darwinism where things naturally die? No, natural selection.
No.
There is a bunch of
Yeah.
natural selection happening with breweries. COVID was a big thing for
Yeah,
that,
it
and I
was.
felt really bad, but you saw a lot of breweries that once, because it just dead stopped all of, everybody was opening craft beer breweries,
Totally.
and it just dead stopped all of that, and it really depended on, like, do you have a good quality packaged product?
Right.
Do you, like, have good marketing? And, like, what is your outreach to your community look like? And if you had bad beer, your brewery failed.
Right.
If you didn't give a shit about how it looked to the public, it failed.
Or you don't know the industry.
You don't know the industry and like especially the community, because that's where you saw a lot of big breweries like Stone, Modern Times, McKellar, all these places that had like big satellite tap rooms, because then that was like the big thing. It's like we're this big awesome brewery, we're going to open a satellite tap
Yeah.
room
Sure.
here.
Right.
There. Well, then once COVID shut everything down to be very just like local, like
Yeah.
your own local region,
Yep.
they all started failing, and then they all closed those places, and they all said the same thing. They're like, we need to focus more on our local community because we've gotten so far away from that.
Totally.
Then when that was the thing bringing us the biggest sustainability and the most money, we don't know our customer base. We don't know these people anymore. We
Like
need to
Stone
get
Berlin.
yeah,
Yeah.
and that, like it wasn't like I wasn't sitting there being like, oh yeah, I wanted it to fail, but that's something that's been written about and is literally in like the craft beer definition, is an emphasis on building and growing local community.
Yeah.
And I was just like, yeah, this is exactly what happens. Like so much of that boom happened and the bubble popped, and then now everything is falling down. And I'm just like, yeah, this was bound to happen.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I keep saying. I'm like, it needs to happen. I just don't want it to be me.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
You know, like
Hey, diversifying your income and like making a community place, I think like you have to.
Yeah.
Like, you're doing that already.
You have good awareness
Yeah.
and scope, though, for I think not only how Lost Nation is doing for as a business and what it needs to be done as a business, but I think also like what the community needs. Like it seems like you're very tied into, and I think that is very valuable.
try to be. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I mean, it helps being that I've seen the craft beer industry rise and fall and rise and now sort of stumble.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we had the 2008 shakeout.
Mhm.
I mean, there's been like, so I guess I think that gives you, I don't know if I'm getting old or not, but it gives you perspective,
You
as
have
Yeah.
knowledge that
opposed
the young
to-
bucks don't.
Yeah.
And
Experience.
you learn.
or being like,
from
hey,
that.
I've worked a tech job and I homebrew on the side one day a week, with my buddies, and like
Doesn't
now I'm
mean
going
you need to open a brewery.
I'm going to open a brewery with my,
Yeah.
like that we don't need that. No
Nope.
offense, but we don't need that.
No, agreed.
Yeah.
Invest in another brewery. That should be the thing. Like invest in
Yeah.
another brewery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Start off keg
Help them.
washing.
Yeah.
Well,
Start-
there's that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
I-
Totally.
I don't have anything against, and I actually I've looked at
You-
trying to go to Siebel and UC Davis, but I think one thing I've learned from my experience in this industry is a lot of people from those graduate programs come and they immediately usually start in the cellar, they start brewing,
Yeah.
and a lot of that beer theory gets put to the test when you actually physically have to do the trade. I just did the old school way. I bugged my hometown brewery.
Yeah.
I was like, I'll clean bathrooms. Just let me work in the brewery. So I was keg washing for 2 years straight,
Yeah.
like
Right.
120 kegs on a very manual system, and then learned other things. And one thing I've noticed is when people come from those graduate programs, I'm like, well, this shouldn't be happening. And I'm like, well,
It is.
It is.
You got to figure it
So-
out.
So to that point, the first batch of beer that I made back, I have 4 different temperature probes on the hot side, and they all had somewhere within an 8-degree differential.
oh,
And so I'm sitting there, and I was like, I got to the point where I was like, all right, the steam coming off too hot, and it was literally knowing the feel of like how the steam hits your face.
yeah, you're like, I can
Be
tell.
like, okay, too hot. Like that temperature, although it's saying 171, it's actually 175.
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know?
yeah.
Like, so those things, they don't teach you that at Siebel.
No, and that's
Experience.
experience that
Yeah,
takes from
yeah.
so many times.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's the best thing. It's just like you want to. It's kind of I'm gonna bring this in. If you're gonna like open a Chick-fil-A, you have to like work at a Chick-fil-A for a year or something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
Like you should like if you want to open a new brewery, you should work at a brewery for a year so you understand
Please.
what you're taking
Yes,
on. Like
totally.
not just being an investor. Like if you're wanting to like open a brewery, like work at a brewery, so you
Mhm.
know what they're talking about when the people are coming. Because if you're not on the floor, if you don't know, like if you're just the person that came in and opened a brewery and they're like, I don't know. I could go off on a whole tangent.
Oh, yeah.
But I agree. Like, you worked at so many breweries. You understand what it takes. And, like, you have the grit to understand this. Like, I want to keep this business going. We're going to make it happen.
Yeah.
What do we need to do? And it's not just the beer. It's a business. And, like, you're figuring out
Right.
other things to make the business keep on going so you can keep on helping the beer community grow here
Right.
and provide good beer in the area. I think that's amazing.
You
Oh,
can
yeah.
make the best beer around, but if you don't know how to run a business, it doesn't.
Exactly.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know?
Well, especially people,
Yeah.
And
too.
this
Yeah.
Kolsch is very good.
Oh, thank you.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
I
it
do
is.
enjoy it.
Sorry, I drank it all. It was fantastic.
Well, another point that we're seeing too, which is interesting, not to drag on, but
No, go ahead.
I really wonder what the general community thinks about, and this is just an open-ended question, but like we're seeing now more breweries that opened that had a production facility that are now closing the production facility and then having that product contracted.
Yeah.
And at what point, I've been asking this to people and we still haven't gotten there, but at what point are you a brewery and at what point are you a brand?
Yeah.
You know, and even for the breweries that say, I'm just going to contract, and you pick up the phone, the beer's made for you, and
Yeah.
and I don't know what the right thing is because I respect everybody's business models, but like at what point is it like,
It is a very new thing.
yeah,
It's a very new
and
thing
it makes
that's
sense
happening.
business-wise.
It makes sense
Exactly.
business-wise.
but
Yeah.
where does that like grit that you're saying, where does
Yes.
that integrity come
Yeah.
from when someone else is making it?
I don't know. Maybe make them come in and like
I
work
think
on the-
I think that's almost more.
on the beer
If I was going to answer that question, I think it's more the mindset of like people that start a brewery because they enjoy, I would say, like the craft beer industry, but unless they are like invested in the process and like obviously like you want to understand everything that you're doing. Like you want to have that tangible sort of like information that you can touch.
Right.
And I think a lot of those, I wouldn't say a lot of those people. My answer for the people that just want to contract because it fiscally makes sense, I'm like, that's great. But you will have no idea what it means when somebody's like, hey, the beer didn't turn out on the Play-Doh that you wanted it to.
Right.
What do you want me to do? They won't understand anyway. They won't understand how it affects their taste, how it affects like the yeast and how the yeast is going to
Right.
be healthy or like what it's going to propagate or, and so those things, that's where it's like I fell in love because I was like, there's so many things that influence this, and being able to tweak and know and how to adjust, I find that so fascinating. And I think for those people, maybe they don't care to. They're like, no, I just want to have like I would say, like you said, a brewery brand.
We'll kind of be the fast fashion of the beer community.
Yeah.
They're the fast fashion people.
And in a saturated
people
industry,
don't like that.
Is that really helping all of us?
No.
I think that's the other question.
Yeah.
You know? And then the community aspect that we've all talked about.
Yeah.
Like, I know how much money I spend at my local hardware store.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if I'm shipping this out to somebody else, it's not benefiting my community.
Yeah, 100%.
You know? Like,
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, having that tie to the space and place you're at.
I would agree. I think it is, like you said, I've never heard it said like that, of being, like, most of the people that we know that, like, have contract brew deals or whatever, like, they're not growing themselves.
Right.
So they're, like, supplementing so they can keep on brewing their beer.
Mm-hmm.
Or, like, we've had friends who, like, they're not able to open their place yet because of permitting stuff, and so they're brewing with other people.
That to me makes sense. If your intention is to bring it back,
Yeah.
I get it.
If someone's not wanting to open their own space and they just want a contract brew, like, it is a brand more than...
Yeah, because even at that point, it's not even like gypsy brewing. It's not
So
like you're
then-
bouncing around doing collaborations and brewing
Yeah.
at like whatever space or place that you're at that point.
Right.
So then you're just the brand and they're getting the credit for it.
You're just picking up a phone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It-
You also have to print it on the can too that says brewed by so and so. And for
So then
me,
they should
I don't
just
know.
act
That's
more
not
money.
Well,
something
but the
I-
consumer, because it's such a saturated market, the consumer can't necessarily discern that.
True.
You
I
know?
will read it, but yeah.
And
true.
but I would argue, because I went out and I toured AB out at Merrimack, New Hampshire.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
And I would argue that is more of a New Hampshire beer than some New Hampshire brewery that's having their beer contracted out of state. You know?
yeah.
Like it's New Hampshire water, it's New Hampshire taxes, it's New Hampshire labor.
Yeah.
You know, it's like the truck drivers that are coming to pick that up are paying gas money. They're buying a pack of smokes at the store, whatever it is.
Yep.
You know, like.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's a good, like, well...
That's actually that's a really good question. We'll definitely be pondering that throughout the
We
day.
could do a second podcast with you.
Yeah.
that is just talking about that, because
Yeah, we'll come back a year from now.
not even a year. We'll come back later and we can talk more about it, because, like, that is so interesting, because I think I've thought about it, but I haven't seen it in that perspective
Right.
either at
Mhm.
all. And so I don't know. I think we hate on, like, obviously we hate on AB and Bev, but they're employing
In the most
people.
polite manner
Yeah,
for
but
But they're
creating.
employing the people.
And I don't say this to
buying
hate
their
on anybody. It's
resources.
just really a question that
It
I
is a
have.
Yeah.
It's a
question.
theoretical, like,
I like this
karmic
question.
sort of like, what does it mean to be a brewery?
No, yeah.
You know?
Well, like,
Like,
Austin and I have been talking about, like, what does it mean to be a craft, like you have the label of craft brewery.
oh, that upside down bottle thing.
Like,
Yeah.
dude, I feel like
That eventually you just pay for. It
I don't
doesn't
have that.
Yeah.
we would love to talk more about that, because a lot of places that we go to, we're like, this
Well-
isn't a craft brewery.
Right.
But, like, you say that you're a craft brewery, and, like, you are making craft beer, I guess, but, like, per the standards of, like, what a craft brewery is, we
Well-
don't feel like you are.
Well, like everyone likes to hate on Sam Adams for this, right? And like I think what Sam Adams has done for the industry is huge.
Yeah.
So, are they a craft brewery? I don't know. Are
Mhm.
they a they're not a small brewery.
No.
Yeah.
Their trials and tribulations on the daily are nothing like what I'm doing. My trials and tribulations on the daily are nothing like they're doing, because they got a
Yeah.
whole board of investors they got to answer to, and all the
Yeah.
It's a very interesting conversation.
But I mean,
We
Sam
love
Adams
it.
has been brewing in Pittsburgh or in Pennsylvania for 25 years
Yeah.
anyway. Like, and that's what. So even now, not to tangent off, but like that's what has annoyed me about that example, is because Jamaica Plain in Boston, if they had put a sliver of the money that they need for the capacity of that product into Jamaica Plain Boston, what would that do for that community?
Oh God, change it for life.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's like, that's where, again, it's a multifaceted question, but I think it's a question that eventually needs to be addressed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what I like about it is that it's thinking bigger than yourself. It's like honestly looking at what is your impact? Like what are you providing that is bigger than just like, oh, we're a company and we turn a profit.
Right.
Because that lasts for generations and generations and generations. It's shaping what business is going to be like in the future, you know? And this is something. This
I
is.
know.
I won't go on this.
We
I
would
won't
love
go
to
on this
talk about
tangent,
this
but
more,
we'll
for
we'll shorten it up and just say
I'm
like
sure it'll be
I
a
think
long
for
Yeah.
I think for a
We'd love to
long
hear your
time, like
thoughts.
businesses have gone down the path, and not just beer businesses, but like you do everything with as minimal amount of employees as you can, so you have less overhead, so you can make more profit, and you just do that because it's the most sensible thing, and you don't treat people as people, you treat them as cogs, and that's just how business is done. And I think people have gotten so inundated and just being like, well, this is the smartest way to do business. And it's like, yeah, but now look at the workforce. Like the average
Yeah.
employee length in the workforce now is 2 years or less. And it's
Wow, that's
like
crazy.
that's what this has created
Yeah.
is when you don't treat people like people, you don't treat them like their time that they give to your business is valuable. And we've heard many stories.
Yeah.
You've probably heard many or maybe experienced yourself of like you work at a place for like 5 or 10 years. And then just one day they're just like, hey man, like this just makes financial sense. Like you're just done. Like we just can't keep you. And it's like that's years of somebody's life.
Sure.
You know? And so that's again like that's a bigger question.
I mean, we definitely talk about this a lot. Like, we both have family members who have been a part of industries for a long time who have had certain issues, and
Yeah.
like we've experienced issues ourselves as younger people. And I think like we did. Like you asked me this question this morning of like, when did business become this? When were things whereas like the people you're employing are not people to you. Like they're
Right.
literally just, and we've talked about this, like when, like we would love to have businesses that are able to support our employees and like help our employees be more and like all this stuff. And so it's just like, it's definitely a deeper issue of not just the craft beer industry. We are a part of the craft beer industry, so we see it.
Sure.
We're also a part of other industries. And like we think about it ourselves of like, what does this look like for people in business? And it's just like, there's no loyalty anymore. There's no like,
Yeah, or it's not valued.
there's no value. And it's like, you're just there for a paycheck, but they're like wanting loyalty. And you're like, haha, like,
And it's crazy to think that this has been probably like a little over 100 years that this whole mindset has kind of, I think, changed. Because back in the day, and I say back in the day, like the 1900s, if you were fixing houses or wagon wheels and stuff, like your quality of work and your reputation in town is like how you got business.
Right.
yeah.
And if you did a shit job or were a shit person, you usually had to leave town because you
Right.
weren't able to make anything. And then you had a choice of like, I either keep being an asshole or I change and try to do better. And like, that's how a lot of stuff, the standards were set on. So
Yeah.
it's wild to think that like in a little over 100 years, it's now, I think, completely shifted.
Well, it's great. I'm glad that you guys just said all that because on the flip of that, there's no way that any of us we wouldn't be sitting here talking to each other right now if it weren't for my employees.
Yeah.
My crew that I've had since Kyle pulled me aside and said we can do this, since the 4 bartenders that have stuck with me the entire time, since my kitchen crew that stuck with, like, I would not be sitting here if it weren't for them.
Yeah.
And we consciously changed the entire model where, we're moving inside now and it's a group discussion.
Mm-hmm.
We were all standing behind the bar last night being like, so where should we put this sink?
Yeah.
As opposed to just like, it's going to go here.
Yeah.
And that has been such a empowering, it's taken a lot of stress off me
Mm-hmm.
and it's made such more informed decisions by everyone having their 2 cents put into it. And then once that decision's made, it creates this better sort of workflow of like, cool, well, I had my 2 cents in that. And if it doesn't work, then we change it again.
No, yeah,
But at
exactly.
least you had like your input was not just considered, but it was like actually considered.
It was
Yeah,
we make decisions.
Yeah.
This crew right now, we all make decisions together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
That's
amazing.
awesome.
You don't
Yeah.
hear that nowadays.
That's
for
good
sure.
business practice.
We wouldn't be here if it weren't for that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Lost
What-
Nation crew.
Yeah.
We can't wait to have some lunch.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Try it out. We will definitely have a follow-up conversation with
Oh,
all
yeah.
this stuff. Like, I don't know
Yeah.
what that will look like, but like, this is something that Austin and I talk about all the time.
Cool.
Of, like, this is why we're doing the podcast. We love to talk about things that are like not just affecting like a specific person, but like what's affecting the
Industry as a
industry.
whole, yeah.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. We'd love to talk more.
Oh, yeah. So we usually ask one last question
Okay.
before we wrap it up. It's nothing crazy.
One last singer.
Yeah.
One last question.
If you were to give yourself a piece of advice, and it doesn't even have to be about like beer business or brewery business, to your younger self, what would that one piece of advice be?
Oh God.
And again, like you can go you don't have to go super in depth or deep. Some people have said like,
Don't go into debt.
don't go into debt.
Don't go into debt.
Okay,
That
that's
would
a good one.
That would be
Oh, man.
100%.
How do you not go into debt nowadays?
It's a lot of hard work.
It's a lot of hard,
Yeah.
But don't go into debt.
Okay.
And if you do go into debt, don't go deep.
Yeah.
Don't go deep.
Yes, I think that would be the one.
I think that's great.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much, dude. This was such a
thank you,
blast.
guys.
Thank
It's been
you
a
so much.
pleasure.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome.
We can't wait to take some photos and share your story.
I look forward to hanging out with you for the rest of the afternoon.
Yeah, I'd
Yeah.
love to
Awesome.
chat more. So cheers, friends.
Cool. Thanks.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
All right.